This is the lens. This is an interpretation of the lens. This video is to the overthinker, to the person who dreams big. This is the lens. This is my most recent revelation, and I think it's going to be one of the most impactful ones that I have. And so I really wanted to take the time to share this with you in a way that was good. I filmed 3 videos, all in like after each other, and they were all like 1/3 of this idea. Because this idea took me the past 3 days to think about and get through and fully understand. Well, actually, it's probably been almost 2 weeks since I was first introduced to this idea till now when I can understand it, I believe, enough to teach it. And so I've put together this document and we're going to go through it. So grab some water. I've got some decaf coffee because it's 7 o'clock. Okay, so the lens. Are you watching the work or are you watching yourself? This is my confession. I can build the whole business, start to finish, every little intricacy. I just don't want to run it. And I'm sure you'll understand this. I love the puzzle, right? I love building the brand, figuring the things out, all the intricacies of it, creating the world that people can join into. But the reality, bringing it into reality, that's not really my favorite part. And so a quick idea that we want to talk about is via negativa. And this is defining a thing by what it is not. And this is going to be pretty important for this video, but this is nowhere near as important as the falcon. And that's a cool thing. And so by knowing what you don't want, you're free to do something else. And I know that this might make a little bit of sense, and you may have heard it before. I hear it a lot with people talking about manifesting stuff. And a lot of times people make the mistake of purely manifesting what you want and never really contemplating what you don't want. Right? And honestly, it's a lot easier to work backwards than to work forwards because your potential is infinite. You can do literally anything you want, right? But there's only a few things that you don't want to do, right? And so if you kind of look at what you don't want to do, it's going to be way better of an indicator for what you should do, right? Than just thinking about all the things that you would like to do. And me and possibly you only really spend time thinking about what we could do. How could we make this business work? How could we make this product work? How could we expand this idea into this big brand? And how could I work on the acquisition channel and all these little intricacies of the business instead of doing the business, right? And so I read that not for me was I'm not enough. And this came from probably like an hour. I mean, not even. This is like an hour loop that I go through maybe once or twice a week. And essentially, you'll be familiar with it if you do the same thing. But essentially, I come off of a spell of despair where I'm at the end of that loop and it's been a few days since that. And I'm feeling down and I get the spark of motivation to think about a new business model, or a new way to just make some freaking money and how I'm going to lock in and I'm going to be disciplined. And I'll start to go through that loop, and I'll think of the first business model, and then we'll work through it. I'll build a prototype, and then I'll kind of evolve it into something slightly different. And then we'll kind of evolve that into something slightly different. And each time we go through this miniature loop, I think that the business is getting better and better and better. And then after a few variations, you kind of realize like, this isn't for me. Like, this is just a dead end of going through all these different things, because you can only pretend to build so many times until you get bored and restless, unrestless. I don't know, but you kind of get that, right? Where after enough time of wanting to do something, you kind of just accept, like, okay, I haven't done anything, and it started to piss me off. And a lot of the times I read the not for me as I'm not enough. And I'll give you the example. I was wanting to do more OS and IT work, which is open source, I think, intelligence, basically. It's a form of, looking through public imagery, public domains, websites, scouring through the internet to find public information that otherwise is obfuscated or sort of hidden to the public. This is kind of like how GeoWizard works, using public information like Google Maps to locate where people are based off of the things in their photos, right? Similar sort of stuff. And I was trying to work out like a way that I could do this potentially as a job, be like a contractor and do this work. And I went through this loop of like building a dream of doing this work. And eventually I just realized, like, after like 5 variations of potential ways that we could do this, like, this isn't really for me. And I got really demoralized at that. And I started to place that as a verdict about myself. And I started to feel really bad. And you might be familiar with this, where you kind of think like this business model that had so much potential, you realize that, maybe it's your virtues, or like you don't want to bend your morals, or whatever it may be. You realize maybe this idea isn't for me, right? But you gave so much time and energy into that thought. And so you perceive it as like abandoning this thought child of yours, and go like, I'm not enough to bring this into fruition, or I'm stupid for getting caught up in this loop, or whatever it is, right? But I'm here to tell you that it's just simply a mismatch. It's information, right? It's not a verdict on you. And this is that via negativa thing. Your thoughts aren't you. Your ideas aren't you. And I can't remember exactly who made a really cool quote on this, but he was basically saying that ideas will flow through you, but as soon as you listen to your voice as if it is you, bad things can happen. And I remember watching this video from this guy where he was explaining that the ancients, the people from 1500s or pre, before that, probably like 2000 BC, or I don't know. I can't remember. But there was a thought that the people had of like the voices in your head that of you speaking wasn't actually you. And it was more like a guiding spirit. And I guess that this was the early thoughts about consciousness and stuff. And I kind of want to akin this idea to that, where it's like, because we all have intrusive thoughts, right? And we know that those aren't really us. But for some reason, we also don't differentiate the quote unquote good thoughts the same way. We go, the good thoughts are me, but the bad thoughts are not me. But I think a better understanding is like, the thoughts you have, they aren't you, right? There's a difference between thinking and doing. And we really want to explore this topic in this video. And yeah, the moment that those thoughts become you, it's bad. And trust me, we're going to explain something crazy, something fucking crazy. The first analogy that I used when I was originally filming this video was skiing. And if you ski down a hill and you hit a tree, right, you can either think, I'm a idiot. I'm a freaking idiot for hitting that tree. How stupid am I for hitting that tree? Or you can go, there's a tree there. I'm going to go around it next time. Right? The collision, the impact, the mismatch, it's weather, right? And you're the whole sky. That was a cool quote I heard. And then there's the fire. Therefore I'm nothing. Therefore I'm bad. Therefore I'm immoral. Therefore I'm evil. This is the only part that you light. Right? This is the I'm an idiot. This is the mismatch with the business and then thinking that you're dumb or whatever or undisciplined for getting caught in the loop again. This is the man on the ground. Here's what I actually do. I lie down and I build a sob story. And I'm not proud of it because that's my past behaviors. And I'm not very fond of them. We'll say that. Basically, I say, like, look how I suffer. Look at what I don't do. This is my direct quote. Because I'm so just. I'm so morally superior than the people running dropshipping businesses. Right? Because I've had the potential to run so many fucking businesses in my 1,000 and probably 46 days of starting my entrepreneurial journey. And every time I got to an idea, I would always back away from it. And one of the common denominators was that I would say something like, I can't do this because I'm morally superior than this, and this doesn't provide anything useful to the world, right? And I would hope and pray that someone would hear my sob story of, look at all these businesses that I'm not running and how much it's hurting me. Praying that someone or God would see that and give me a medal for it. Give me a medal for the ruin that I'm creating within myself. Harry Miller, or you might see it down below as H.J. Miller, is a guy who has an incredible past, and he's making videos on Instagram that are incredibly insightful. And I stumbled upon his video maybe 2 weeks ago where he said this particular thing. This was a video titled 2 Self-Saboteurs, 75 Hard Will Not Save You. And in it he said, one of the opening lines was, I know what your humility is. You have such a sense of guilt and bad conscience that you feel you need to punish yourself in order to deserve something. Right? And it's humility worn as self-punishment. And thinking that suffering is the entry fee. Right? This is that suffering from not running the business and saying that I'm morally superior and then going through the cycles of beating myself up about it and then hoping that is going to pay off the guards to get the lifestyle that I want, the money that I want. Right, that a business is just going to fall into my lap because of how much pain I've gone through. And then he says, you move through life like an arsonist, leaving structure fires just to light the fire, just to light the way back to your sanity. And this is that tree, right? From hitting the tree when you're skiing. I set the damage, so the wound has a witness, right? If I run into a tree, I could either get up and go around it and move on and get to the bottom of the hill, achieve the goal, or you can light the tree on fire and create a beacon and draw attention to you and the suffering that tree caused you and look at all the people around you and hope that one of them will give you an award for trying to get to the bottom of the hill. And then he says, it is more loving to tell a downed man he can stand up than to tell him his sob story is inspiring. Real help points back to the actual work, where comfort just decorates the floor. Right? This is that you hit the tree and you're on the ground. And it is more loving for the people around you to tell you that you can just get up and go again and get to the bottom of the hill on your own accord, instead of giving you these awards for how much pain you've been in, right? And I've been in that for 3 years, lighting fires around me and getting burnt in the process, all in some grand attempt to light the way back to my sanity, to show other people, like, hey, look at all these things that have hurt me. I'm good. I'm just. I'm sane. You know, and it sounds good in process. You know, you think about, oh, I'm so morally superior. I'm gonna light this tree on fire so that everyone can see how morally superior I am, and like it makes sense in your head. You know, whatever the analogy is for you and what you do, and the damage that you suffer and cause yourself on purpose just to prove a point. And then he says, worry and dread. It's the repurposing of energy that should have gone to the task itself, but instead went to your own image. All right? This is the moment the theft happens. This is the fuel that was meant for the work burned on the image. This is, instead of you getting up from the tree and using the, I don't know, energy drink or whatever to use your energy that you have to get up and move on and get to the bottom of the hill. Instead, you pour it on the tree and you strike the match. And you pour this energy into preserving the idea that you have sanity instead of having sanity. Right? Because self-love and self-loathing are both pride. This is another one of his quotes from the exact same video. In the fact that the self is still the chief object of concern, right? This video was fucking incredible. I'll try and find a way to link it down below, but it was like a 2-minute video and I literally had to listen to it 5 or 6 times to hear the different pieces of it. That's when you know that it is good, because you can't understand it all in brief passing. And so I sent it to myself and I was rewatching the video, and each time I rewatched it, you'd pick up a little bit more, and you give your brain a little bit more time to process the context around each statement. And some of these quotes are incredible, and there's more to come, trust me. And so this is like, you adore yourself or you hate yourself. Either way, the self stays center of stage, right? And C.S. Lewis said this first. And what it's basically pointing to is that idea of, instead of having sanity and doing the thing, you're like, whether or not you hate yourself or you love yourself, you're pointing everything towards yourself to try and show people that you are either worthy of love, loving yourself, you're showing yourself as being this thing, or you hate yourself and you're trying to show attention to the fact that you suck, and you're burning and destroying everything around you to draw attention to the fact that you're this shameful beast instead of just doing something. Right? And one of the things that really sparked this chain of events was this quote here, and it was incredible. This was literally the 6th. I heard this every time I watched it, but I never understood it. And I went through like the 5th or 6th time, and I started pausing and reading all the quotes that he had attached to the screen as he was speaking. And this one hit me like a truck, hit me like a tree that I ran into while skiing, right? And he says, you have the appetite, but not the courage to sink your teeth into anything. So you eat yourself like a depraved animal, right? Hunger with no object turns inwards and eats the one who's hungry. And the analogy he gives of this is really, really cool. This is, again, on that energy that should have gone to the task, but instead has gone to preserving your sanity and your self-image, right? And he says, doing this, right, is like redlining your car in parked. It produces, redlining your car with the handbrake on. It produces smoke and the burnt smell of the rubber tires, but it provides no motion, no progress, only a shattered transmission, right? You've got so much courage to do great things, to build, to love, but you don't have the courage to go do it. And so you sit in the cycle of how can I be more loving, of how can I be more just, of how can I be more good of an entrepreneur. And you just give all this energy out into the void of nothingness, and in the process you just atrophy. You slowly break down from focusing on yourself so much, right? And then he says, is that what you want me to say? Look how hard you make it look. This is the medal that I'm fishing for, and you might be too. And he says, when the teacher grades the exam, there are no points for how much sleep you lost, right? And this is such a massive part of the male psyche, right? Look at how much I suffered. And we all do this, right? I remember in school, any time before the exam, or like just any time in general, it's who suffered the most? Who had the worst thing happen to them? How much sleep did I not get last night? And I still do this, and I still see people do this. And it's dumb. It doesn't make any sense. This is why. And then he goes on to talk about birthday parties, right? Oh, maybe you should just watch that video for yourself, and look at the birthday analogy he gives, right? I might explain it later on, but it's fucking incredible. And then he says, if no one were watching, not God, not my dad, not your dad, not the person you strive to be good for or whatever, would you actually do any of that? Right? In a pure vacuum, if there were no people to perceive you being morally superior, or if there were no people to possibly perceive you suffering, would you still do it? Would you still light the structure fires? Would you still tear down the business because it wasn't morally superior? Right? And yeah, if there was no one, no time, no money, just the pure binary, right? And then do that. Do that thing, right? And then he says, a loser focuses on the winner on winning. Comparison is the lens turned inward, wearing a competitor's face. And this is the start of the lens. This is the fucking incredible idea, right? And so what he's saying is, like, when you are playing the role of the loser, you are looking at everyone else being successful and thinking, woe is me, projecting it all onto you. You're looking out on all these potential things that you could do. Whereas the person who achieves those things, all they think about is achieving those things. There's an incredible photo that Harry showed through the video, and it was maybe Michael Phelps swimming. And you can see he's just swimming. He's looking straight ahead. He's just swimming. And you can see just behind him in the next lane that his competitor has his head turned watching Michael Phelps. And this is that energy that you're giving out to other people to provide for your sanity instead of achieving the task, right? Woe is me that I struggle. Give me an award for the struggling, right? Instead of pivoting and going to get what's actually for me, right? And I do this. I do this with my lust. I do this with my greed and my sloth and any other sinful nature that I have, right? And Theo Von even talked about this on his podcast, where he says, like, I will pray to God knowing in the back of my mind that I'm going to do it again. And it's like, I would pray knowing and asking for repentance, knowing that I'm probably going to do it again. And hoping and praying in my heart of hearts that God would see my heart, see the pain that I'm in, the discomfort that the sin causes me, and go, here's your medal, here's your reward, here's your entrance into heaven, because you suffered so much. Maybe I solve puzzles so you'll see what I could have built, right? And this was one of the moments that I had and I think the first time I tried to film the sort of thought, the reaction to that Harry Miller video. And I was moving through the thoughts, and I was thinking maybe that I make these videos and I solve these puzzles in my head so that I can show you all of these businesses that I could have built, so that you look at me as this person who builds all these extravagant businesses, and that you'll give me an award for it, instead of building the business and getting the award of building the business and getting the money that comes from building a business and providing jobs for the people when you build that business, right? And so I just want to say, like, noticing is the first step. And it's difficult, but that's all this is. This is the Falcon. This is so cool. Are you focused on yourself? Or are you looking up at the Falcon? Because the brooding can vanish. The Falcon is always there. And this was from Iris Murdoch, and I'm sure we'll talk more about her. But it's such an incredible quote and perspective. And she says, there is nothing now but the kestrel. And the kestrel is the type of falcon that she saw, right? This is from her work, The Sovereignty of Good, like 1969 or whatever. And so in the story, she sat on this chair, 1970 it says. And so she sat on this chair, this rocking chair outside on her porch or whatever. And she's brooding over her wounded pride and her sorrow. And she's rocking back and forth, brooding, internally thinking, like, I could be so much better. And then a hawk appears. And she looks up and she sees the hawk. And the brooding self is gone. And the kestrel's there. And the kestrel was always there. And she calls this unselfing, right? This isn't like helping yourself out or thinking better of yourself. This is just not being yourself, not being your thoughts, right? And this is, if you've ever experienced or heard of the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 thing, where it goes through like, what are 5 things that you can see? What are 4 things that you can touch? What are 3 things that you can hear? 2 things that you can smell, and 1 thing that you can taste. This is this idea. This is all to get you out of your head and to focus on something that actually exists. Right? We're going to talk way more in depth about that concept. Because I spent 3 years circling nothing, crying on the ground. There's videos on my YouTube channel, and there's a video that I still haven't posted of me on the ground crying because of the pain that I've caused myself. And the lens, the focus, instead of out on the falcon, on the business, on the winning, it's on me and what I'm doing and how much pain I'm in and how much I'm suffering and how much I could have built. The lens was on me. And so you got to ask yourself, this is the one variable, one question, where does this attention point towards? Is this inwards? Are you the self on trial? Because then there's no flaw. This is the looping that you'll go through. Or is it outward? Is it on the work? Is it on a verdict that can actually exist? Right? In my first taking of this video, I called it the victim mentality. I mentioned in the video that maybe I have a victim mentality, and maybe that's one of the things that I do and have. But this only names the posture. Right? Underneath is a root to never being graded by reality. Right? And here's the really cool thing. How can a test be a test if you already know the answers? Right? And what I want to talk about with that is like, when you are putting yourself on trial and you're in your own head and you're brooding about this thing, you're trying to create a test or a verdict to try and ascertain a point of information about yourself. Like, am I justified for doing this behavior? Am I virtuous? Am I actually a good person? You're creating a test, right? But in your own head, the questions, the answers, you already know those things, and you're just gonna loop through them again and again and again and again. Right? Calling it a test. But it's not a test. The only test that actually is a real test is when you don't know the answers to it. And that is outside of you. That is, if I do this thing, what's going to happen? I don't know. I don't know the answer. That's the test. The test is asking you, if you did this thing, right? Maybe you are so afraid of a real verdict, of a real grading on your paper, that instead of doing a real test, you do a test that you can answer and you can grade yourself. Right? And so this was me, right? I would hoard the puzzle, I would rebuke praise for it, and then I would create a sob story. This is one organ, but many uniforms, right? Hoarding all the puzzles. I would create all these businesses and do nothing with them. When I'd sit down with mum and I would explain her a new concept that I've learned, she'd tell me like, wow, this is such an incredible thought. Like, I'm learning this now at 50 and you're figuring this out at 21. And I would sit there and I would go, and I would rebuke the praise. I would tell her that I wouldn't say anything, but in my mind I would think like, don't give me any praise, I don't deserve it. Hoping that, like, I don't know, maybe she would notice that and give me more of an award. Harry Miller in the video talks about the tyrant will never get as many praises as the greedy person, as the one who will rebuke the praise, right? Because what I will do, the greedy one, they will reject your praise in the hopes that you'll give a second one. They will rebuke it only to hear it again. Right? And again, you gotta watch the video because it's so incredible, right? But the puzzle, the one place I'm definitively right and have zero exposure against is the internal puzzle. And so this is that loop that I was talking about, right? Am I enough? Am I smart? Am I pure? Am I humble? A verdict about the self can always be re-asked. There is no definitive answer. So it just spirals. This is the test with answers you already know. After you answer that test and you score 100 out of 100, you go, okay, well, can I test something else now? William James in 1890, from The Principles of Psychology, and he says that self-esteem is your actual objective success over the pretensions. So your actual physical things that you've done over the thoughts that you have about yourself, right? But if you go ahead and you put yourself in the pretensions, there's no flaw. you know. And it's not like he wrote this from a scientific study and he was I don't know. No, he was spending years in deep suicidal depression in his 20s, and out of that came this idea, right? And a recent idea that I was going around was like the church versus the printing press. I wanted to create something so powerful that it would disrupt the entire way the world works. You know, I wanted to give all the information and give it into a real place that everyone could see it, like the printing press did to the Bible, right? Where the church had the Bible in Latin, and the common folk couldn't read Latin. They could barely even read English, right? And so the church would hoard these books and sell, was it indulgences? Where essentially they would promise you salvation and they would promise you that you would get into heaven if you pay a little fee. And they'll tell you what the Bible actually says and what this actually means. And they'll tell you what you wanted to hear. And then they'd block anyone else who tries to say the truth. And you depend on them. Right? This is the modern day grifter. This is the modern day social media influence. They're the only ones who know how to run a business or make money online, and they're the only ones who can tell you how to do it. And you have to go to them, and you have to learn in their school. Sound familiar? And so I was trying to ask, like, am I becoming the church? Hoarding the manuscripts, holding all the puzzles and business knowledge that I have, so that you could only get them from me. Right? And I spent a while trying to figure out, am I becoming the church? Am I morally corrupt? Am I actually going to give you this information where you can come learn from me and never ever have to come back to me and still grow? Right? And this was basically the stopping point for 99, all of my businesses. Is my commerce pure? And this flips the lens straight back at me. Right? Commerce is clean. There's no morality within commerce. I fix your problem, you pay me. That's it. Right? I do something for you, you give me something in return. That's commerce. That's pure. There is no morality behind that. But then it's the people on either side of that then think, is my transaction pure? Am I doing it for the right reasons? You know, I would akin dropshipping to fair trade coffee. Right? And I really think that eventually there will be some sort of stamp that goes on real products that is like the fair trade coffee logo. Right? Because essentially what's going on is this is fair trade coffee. Again, I've never heard anyone talk about this, but dropshipping, I can never get into it because I have morals, right? And essentially what they're doing is finding someone who can make it cheaper and sell it for cheaper and pay their workers pennies on the dollar, like the old coffee makers, and then sell it to the West for like 50, 40 times markups. Right? And that was one of the big things for me. It was I can't do dropshipping because I have morals. Right? And so I would create this whirlpool, this vortex of am I pure? Am I pure enough? Would I actually do it if this was the case? Would I do that? Is that a pure judgment? Am I pure enough? Am I just? Is that a true statement? Am I actually lying to myself to benefit myself? Am I doing this for a deeper psychological realize that I don't understand yet? Sound familiar? Doesn't end. And these are some clever words. And I heard it again from Harry Miller. And he says, well, he was quoting C.S. Lewis, I think. And he says, humility isn't thinking less of yourself. Humility isn't hating yourself because you're undeserving of praise. Humility isn't of hating yourself and trying to be a better person. No. Humility is thinking of you less. I heard it. I thought it sounded pretty cool. I didn't understand it for about 2 weeks. And then I started getting into this concept here and it hit me again like a fucking truck. This is the lens. Are you focusing on yourself? Because that is not humility. If you talk to someone and you go, how can I help them? That's you helping them. But if you are going there thinking, how can I help them so that they think I'm a good person? Or if you go, how can I help them to prove to myself that I'm actually helpful? And then you go, hold on, I'm having the lens on myself. I'm morally unjust. How can I be morally just? How can I actually fix this issue that I have? You're still focusing about you. It's just about you. And this is the humility thing. This is the fat, relentless ego that Iris Murdoch calls it. The ego will create these problems and eat anything that it can possibly to give itself some sort of verdict, right? You'll do something for someone and it'll be a good thing, and then your ego will go, and it'll go, look at that good thing that I did. I'm a good person now. Am I a good? And you'll just make it about yourself again. So what it really is, and this was from C.S. Lewis. This was the slightly different quote. So a cheerful, intelligent chap who took real interest in what you said to him. This was the truly humble person. A truly humble person is the cheerful, intelligent chap who took a real interest in what you said to him. Not about how well he heard you, not about how well he shows interest into what you said, not about how well he thinks about himself for showing interest in what you said, not about how well he accuses himself of being morally unjust for recognizing those past things that I just said. You see the loop? This is what I've been fucking stuck in. And I'm going to help you get out of that. And so Lewis's actual picture is not to give yourself a low score, not to hate yourself and not to love yourself either. It's to take your attention, your lens, and look at the fucking falcon. Look at the person in front of you. And spend it entirely, your energy, on someone else. And this is the specimen. I can only speak from my experience, right? And a lot of the times when I was trying to understand this concept, I would speak about my own experiences, and then the fat, relentless fucking ego would go, oh, I noticed something. I'm good. I noticed that I'm talking about myself. That's bad. Good job, I noticed that. It just fucking eats anything that it can. And it does not stop. And you will know this because you will do a good thing and then you will go, I'm a good person. And it will just fucking eat anything that it can. Right? And so I would explain these topics and these stories that I have, and I would go, oh my gosh, I'm talking about myself all the time. But the story, I can't talk about a story that I've gone through without me being in the story, because I had done the thing, right? And this is the differentiation. A thing that you do is a thing, right? If you retell a story about a thing that happened, you're there by proxy. You are not the object of focus. The story, the thing in the story is, you're just there because you were there, right? And this was a big thing that I had to try and fucking understand about it, right? Is talking about myself just? Catch that, because that is the lens and the fat, relentless ego looking back at yourself. right? And so the only thing to know, right, is where is this lens facing? Is it facing at the actual problem? Is it facing at the actual object, at the actual test, at the actual thing in front of me? Or is it on me? Am I being judged? And don't correct yourself, because that is you correcting yourself to be right, to be better, to think about yourself more. And this was insane. When I was thinking about this, I would catch myself going, wow, I caught it. I'm such a... And then I take the thing that I did that was good, and then I corrupt it by thinking about myself again. And then I would notice that, and I would go, wow, how good am I for noticing that? And I was like, oh my gosh, this pain that I'm causing myself, how do I stop it? How do I stop it? How am I so evil? How am I so corrupt? Do you get it? Right? Humility and done. Humility isn't giving yourself a lower score. It is not rejecting the people around you at the birthday table singing you the happy birthday song. You know how you sit down at the table and they sing you happy birthday and you go and you cringe inside? That's you rejecting their praise, hoping that some bigger award will come to you. Who are you to reject their praise, despite it being for something as simple but so monumental as you being alive? You know, how badly would you wish that you could sing happy birthday for someone one more time? And how much would that mean to you? And then imagine being on the other side of that and then being the person that you get to sing happy birthday to one more time. And they go, this is so cringe. I don't deserve it. And they just reject your praise. Right? Because this humility, this don't give me praise. I don't deserve it. I'm a bad person. Just because I was born doesn't mean that life should be celebrated. I've done bad things with my hands. You're doing this all to try and make people think that you're sane and that you have better judgment and that you're morally superior and that you can think about things deeper. And it's still a verdict about you. Right? And so what this thing is trying to say is like, don't have verdicts that are worse or better. Just have fewer verdicts. Because you're spending your attention somewhere else, right? Done doesn't mean understood. It means there's a test to go take. Not a test in the head that you can just write the answers to and then solve another test for how well you made that test one. Done means done. Out you get. Do the thing, right? I said in one of the first videos, you don't get better at teaching by trying to be a better teacher. You teach. And I didn't realize it when I said it. But for the past 3 years, I've been trying to be a better entrepreneur. Spinning my tires with the handbrake on. Burning all the fuel. Breaking my axles. And doing nothing with that. You know? And the test to take, I really want to come back to this because this is such an interesting idea, right? When there is a test to take, and you'll understand when there's a test to take because typically you'll just start to lose interest in it. Because you'll realize, oh, there's something I have to do now instead of being able to imagine this world. Right? For me in this drink brand that I'm building with my mum, I could spend hours building this complex world about what these words mean and what the emotions are and what the colors are and what they mean to you and what songs we use and what scents you use and what towels we sell and how we can embroider the logo on it and how we can build these things. And then it came time to order the drink ingredients. And then I was like, I don't want to do that. I want to refine the drink first. I want to think about how I could make the drink better before I get the ingredients, because I want to be smart. I want to refine the drink now so that when I get it, I can just make it. So that I'm not wasting my ingredients and my money and my time. Let me just think about how to make a better drink. Instead of ordering the drink and making a better drink and then running the test of making the drink and testing the drink. You can't test a drink that you haven't made. Right? But you'll do this and you won't even realize it, and you'll think, I'm so smart for not leaping into the fire and figuring out how I can put the burning out, how I can put the fire out. There is a child inside the burning building dying, and you are sat outside of it thinking, how could I put the flames out? How could I wear more protection? How could I call for backup and get water over here faster? Maybe if a plane drops water on it could work. What plane? Well, it'd have to be a different plane because those ones are too big. Right? And so it's like, when there is a test to take, any time that you spend procrastinating on that test is because you are focusing about you. Because you are, instead of doing the test, doing the thing, getting a real verdict about you, about how well you actually did something, instead of getting something that you are afraid of, you pretend to be productive, right? And my dad told me once, we were sat down and I was explaining to him that I want to do something great. And he said to me, like, my brothers, they don't have very big engines, but they get by and they love what they do. They love just having their car and working on their car and doing their life. And he's like, and I can see that you have a big motor and you want to do things big. But unlike your brothers, you don't have a rudder. And I'm worried you'll spin in circles. And again, at the time, in my head, I was like, I'm not going to spin in circles. I'm smart. I'm intelligent. I'm going to figure it out. One of these days, I'm just going to figure it out. I rejected his worry so I could fucking feel better about myself. Instead of going, man, yes, you know what? You're right. I am spinning in circles. Because I was in the loop. Right? There was a test to do, but instead of doing the test, instead of running the fucking business, instead of running the 100-meter race, you sit on the sidelines and you go, how could I run this 100-meter race to win it? What shoes would I wear? And this is the cold floor. This is the barbell. This is the email. If I won't lift it, okay, I want to be good enough first. Just lift it. Did you? Yes or no? Then, how could it be done better? Go do that. That's all you need to fucking do. Right? This is the thing about the gym. And I remember seeing these posts people would make, but I don't think anyone truly understood what they were saying, right? And they say, I love the gym because the gym doesn't lie to me. It doesn't give me an award for being sick. The weights don't get lighter when I'm sick, when I'm tired, when I'm sad, when I'm happy, when I'm hyped up. The weights are just the same. They are as heavy as they always were. And I can only lift them if I'm strong enough. Right? And so go lift the fucking weight. And if you cannot lift it, do not sit there and go, wow, I suck. I couldn't lift the weight. Go, okay, I didn't do that thing. How can I? Oh, I need to do more bench press. Oh, I need to do more calf raises. And go do that fucking thing. And I was wearing a puffer jacket at the time of filming this video, and I was thinking, like, Contemplation is staying in the puffer jacket, staying in the warmth, staying in your own mind where no one can actually hurt you but your own fucking fat, relentless ego. I love that. The cold floor is where the barbell is where the cold iron is, where the weights don't lie. There is no praise on the floor. The barbell does not give you a medal for lifting it. It can't. It's just the weight. There is no award unless the yes or no is your award. Unless lifting the weight is your award. Right? And it's like, it's so easy to go and lift the weight and then not do it, and then think of how much you suck and how much you need to train harder because you're weak. Or you lift the award, or you lift the weight and you give yourself the award and you go, wow, I'm so incredible. I lifted that weight. I did this. I'm so incredible. That's the fat, relentless ego corrupting this divine beauty of a true yes or no binary verdict and going, let's make it about me. Let's make it about me. Me. Let's make it about me. Let's make this weight that I lifted about me, about my capabilities, about how good I am. So the gym. Would I still go if no one could ever see? And this was a thing that I was really struggling to understand, right? I started relating this idea of flipping the lens inwards versus outwards, and how inwards is corrupting the thing that you're doing. And this is like that vacuum test of going to the gym, right? If you never ever got praise for being stronger, for being bigger, for looking more handsome, if your girl never thought you looked better naked or whatever from lifting weights, would you still lift those weights? Right? And I sat there for like an hour back and forth trying to think of like, how do I understand this? Because I didn't get it. Right? And because I was the idea that I was talking was like, you can do the rep and then you can continue to do more reps, and there's the two parts of that, and it's like each rep you do is lifting the weight, and then whether or not you lift the weight or not changes if you continue trying. I was like, okay, that's corrupt, right? And I was thinking like, if I do lift this weight or not, and I don't get praise, and I stop going to the gym, that's corrupt. And then I was like, what if instead you just were constantly hoping, and you were just holding out hope that some way, even though it's impossible, someone somehow gave you praise for it. If someone actually gave you a medal for doing something. I was like, how is that different from not expecting an award and doing it for the fact of doing it because you think you should? And I was like, how is that any better? Because the end result is that you both lift weights and that you both continue to lift weights. And I was like, so how can I prove that that's morally unjust, that you're caring only about yourself when you're still doing the same thing? And I didn't understand it. This was before I learned the lens. And then you separate it into, you can lift the weights because you want to look better. You can lift the weights because you want to be stronger. That's fine. That's not you being corrupt. That's a transaction. That's you going, I want this, you give me that. I lift the weights, you give me strength. That's commerce. That is just pure. That is clean. You attaching yourself to that and then going, am I, me. That is you and your fat, relentless ego eating the pureness of the thing so that you can try and be pure. Right? Lift for a verdict about yourself and it's tainted. Even if the compliment is impossible. Right? And so this is 0 and 1. This is the final sort of idea that I was trying to explain, but I couldn't really put my finger on it. But I really like this idea, right? Thoughts, the shit going on in your head, are 0. And I don't mean that they're not a thing. I mean that they're not a thing. They're not a real thing. They don't do anything. Not that they're not real, right? And actions are one. They're a number. They're an integer. They're the digits. They're actual things. If I do something, it's done. There is now an object, a time and space where something happened. If I think about doing something, nothing happens, right? You cannot think a thing into existence. You cannot think yourself into being a better person. You can only do it, right? Thinking has no end. Thinking, zero, is infinitely small. There is nothing there. It is an infinite nothingness. Only an action can collapse that nothingness into a thing, right? This was an idea, a concept that I heard a while ago. I never researched into it, so forgive me if this isn't like a thing that they believe. But the quote was like, "Events make time. If there's no event, there is no time." And this was I'm not gonna try and pronounce this name, but this was like the Zamani and something else. The Swami and the Zamani basically roughly translates in English to like the present and the future or something, or the present and the past, and basically the tribes in Africa don't believe that there is a future, and that it's only when you do something does new time get created, right? Time is to them like a, and again, I'm just saying to them, I'm not, anyway, time is simply an order of events. And if there is no new events, there is no new time, right? And the analogy that they were given in the speech was like, that's why they'll sit under a tree all day and just laugh and be happy. You know, again, I don't know how accurate this is, but it's like, never mind, I'm just going to stop. And it's like, the thought is that nothing moves until something happens. But this is so true. If there is no action, there is no you, right? And it is a contested thought, whether this is true or not or whatever. But frame the rest of that theory as a lens, right? And this is that collapsing the infinite, the infinite amount of things that could happen into a thing, and then time gets created. You know, it's like sitting inside of your own mind, thinking about how and what your purpose is and what you're going to do with your life. You can't. There is no thing. Only once you do a thing and you look back can you make sense of it all. You have no purpose until you do it. Does that make sense? Right? There is no path in front of you until you do it. And you can't think a path into existence. You have to do it. And this is again from Harry Miller. When the teacher grades the test, there are no bonus points for how much sleep you lost. Right? The practical, the doing the test is 100% of the grade. Right? The theory is necessary. You do need to think about things, but it's ungraded. There is no verdict. There is no progression. There is no creation when you just think. Right? And so sometimes thinking is necessary, but you have to do something. And I'm not trying to say like, you just gotta fucking do it. You just gotta do it. You just gotta do it. David Goggins, 75 hard, just do it. Right? You can only action a better person. You cannot think yourself a better person. And you will get caught in the trap of crying and hoping and praying that you can be better. And you will film yourself sat in the corner of your bedroom crying about how you wish you could be better. You can think yourself so pure, so good, and then still pull the trigger anyway. Because character is what you've done. People can only judge you over the things that you do. And then you'll do the same thing. You'll judge yourself over what you do, but then you'll keep thinking, and then you'll judge yourself on the thinking. That's not a thing, right? And William James said, to give up those pretensions, those beliefs about yourself, about how just am I, how morally uncorruptible am I, how good am I. Giving those thoughts up is as blessed a relief as if you were to get them gratified. To release this pressure within your heart that you hold about hoping that you are a good person. Letting go of that is just as blessed as if God came down and gave you an award for it. Right? I tried to be something by feeding the wanting. But the relief comes faster from setting it down. Right? And making the actual drink. And so this is the exit. There is no graduation. There is no, you've done it. There is no, congrats, you've figured it out. There is no award. Right? And I know that that's scary and that might be disheartening. You might think like, but when will I ever get the award of knowing how to do it? That's the lens flipped on you. So flip it out. What can you do? What things would you do if you were a better person? Go do those things. And very soon you will realize, oh, the things that I have done are that of a good person. Therefore, I'm a good person. But don't give yourself an award for it. Just keep the lens pointed outwards on listening to what they are telling you and actually listening, you know? There is no graduation. You only get quicker at turning your head back around. Right? I'm not going to say that analogy. The hit, the running into the tree. This is just the weather. These bad thoughts, these emotions, they're just the weather. You are the whole sky. Right? The fire, the lightning that gets struck out of the weather. This is the only part that you create. You create the pain. You create the destruction. So instead of giving this discharge of electricity into burning the fucking tree, use that energy to create a rainbow, to do something, right? Not just the vanity of looking like a rainbow, but of building one, right? And so this is the question, right? And we talked about it, but we're going to talk about it again. Would you still hate yourself if there was nobody to impress? And I want you to say that. When I say this again, answer me. Answer me. Would you hate yourself if there was nobody to impress? This is what I wrote down. I said, no, I would not hate myself if there was no one to impress. I would just simply learn and try things and develop and help. I would just do things, right? And it's just, that's all it is. It's so simple, right? Just point it at the work, right? Let the watcher go hungry. Take your time. Don't think too hard. Think about the things you've done and keep it outwards. Keep the lens on the real test. The one that you don't have an answer to. The one that is scary. The one that might reveal something about you that might be afraid. And be humble and accept. Because this is going to be a test that tells you what you now need to do via negativa. If you fail, you now know where you can do better. So stop being afraid of the verdict of a real thing, of hearing that you didn't lift the weight, because that's all it is. You just didn't lift the weight. So go back to the gym the next day, get stronger, go again. Thank you.